MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey, Heaps! Heaps! What's so funny?
Did you guys have that at Fresno State?
Good. That's a good comment there on the YouTube chat for those of you listening to the podcast. Put it back up. Adrian says, "Is it college rules? If they don't show up in 5 minutes, we can leave." LOL. Did anybody have that rule anywhere other than like students all claimed that was a rule? But is that a real rule that existed somewhere? Like in the bylaws, like you don't get an absence if the teacher's 10 minutes late. It's never been 5 minutes. First of all, it was always like 15 minutes.
Yeah, 15. Everyone was gone, but I don't know if it was an actual rule. But it definitely is something that lived in the myth of the college kids when they're drinking. Like, bro, if he's not there, $4.99, take off. Like, okay.
It's easy to walk out. I mean, a lot easier to say you're going to walk out than walk out. I remember I had a professor, great class. I think his first name was Eric, Dr. Hickey, the psychology of violent crime. He's like one of the profilers of the Unabomber. And his thing was to be a great class, loved it. But to be in the class, the required reading was his book
that you had to buy.
And then saran wrapped to the book or whatever, it came with the book, was a little remote control, which is how you took roll, because it was a big class, big stadium classroom. So there was like a digital remote control that you would click to, say, I'm here today, which I guess you could have just given it to somebody else and they would click it and say, you're here today. But you had to have that too. So you couldn't even do the class without the book because, the attendance was part of the grade and the little remote was saran wrapped to the book and you needed both of them.
Do you know the craziest part about going to college is we're just two public school guys. The best part about public schools is when you go to history class, right? When you first show up your junior year, senior year, whatever, you go to the library and they give you the book, right? They give you the book for math class, whatever, you check it out and you have that for that, that semester or whatever. I don't even remember what Davis High School was on. Then you get to college and they're like, you're going to need this book. And then you go to another class, you're going to need this book. And you just think, okay, like, where's the library? Where do they give it to me? And they're like, no, you have to go to this place in town and purchase them. I remember calling my parents to be like, it's $375 for 3 books. And then they're like, don't worry, when you buy them, you can sell them back to us. I'm like, well, it's just basically like checking out. You just exchange some money. You buy it for $100 and then you give it back for like $26. You're like, what the fuck is this transaction? And then they clearly rewrap it and resell it for the same price.
Well, that's where the scam
rackets ever.
The other part of that racket is like, okay, fine, I'll just buy the book used. Well, you need to have the 8th edition. Last year's was the 7th edition. We updated it with new pictures of lizards. 8th edition has the new pictures of the lizards. If you're on the 7th edition, you'll have the old pictures of the lizards.
I wonder if the internet's changed the game a little bit on that with like, the books, you can find them, download them, different places for free.
Yeah. Or like all the books are available on iPad and then you can share it with people.
God, I spent so much money. I spent more money on books than tuition. Our state school tuition was not very much money.
I paid
in the 2000s. It was like $300 a quarter or something.
We were semesters, and I think it was like $750 a semester at Fresno State.
You could have like a college
my dad was in the military, so I think maybe it was like $1,200, but for me it was $750 or something like that. But nonetheless,
I'm pretty sure quarters at Cal Poly were like $600. When I hear some of these, like it's $75 to go to school, I'm like, even when you added my rent, going to Cal Poly was not very much money. Yeah, I mean it was probably $15,000. All said, food, the whole thing. It was. Right. I hear some of these stories,
not counting beer,
not counting alcohol. Yeah, but it was the state school system when we attended.
Yeah,
was very, very economically friendly.
Yes, it was. For those of you listening to this as a podcast, if you've never seen the YouTube, a growing trend on YouTube is that we say the show is going to start at 1, like this one does on Thursday, and we actually come on at 1:06, and people say, "Where are you? You're late." And we say, it's like a baseball game starts at 7, but first pitch is actually 7:06 or kickoff or tip off. We open the doors at 7 or at 1, and then we come on stage. So we appreciate everybody getting in line. We like to, we don't like the seats to be empty when we show up on stage. You know what I mean?
You know those legendary like concert venues that like I think Kanye might have been one of these guys. People when they like famous people when they do concerts, and there's always like you got to wait like 3 hours for even to come out. You just sit there, drink. Maybe they want you to buy shit, and they don't come out. This concert starts at 8, and the guy doesn't come on till like midnight. You're like, what are we doing?
Or lines? How about standing in a line?
Oh,
no,
can't
thank
even
you.
imagine.
No, thank you. On the stream, haha says R.I.P. Ray Liotta.
I was actually just watching the scene from Goodfellas, speaking of the line, when he takes Karen, his new, I think she's his girlfriend at the time, to the mob restaurant. I mean, it's a huge restaurant in New York City, and I think Frank Sinatra is supposed to be there. Like, he's not actually there in the movie, but like that's part of the scene. And everyone's waiting in line, and they just go right to the back door, and they go through the kitchen, and everyone knows his name. And he's giving people 20s, and she's like, "What do you do?" And he's like, "I'm in construction." She grabs his hand; it's soft, and he goes, "Well, I'm a union delegate."
Yeah, I wonder. I saw the clip today. Somebody posted just the gif of Ray walking into the cornfield in Field of Dreams, his character Shoeless Joe Jackson walking into the corn stalks. And I wondered if when he shot that scene, or when he watched that movie, it ever occurred to him that one day I'll die and somebody will use this scene symbolically to represent my death. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, he was in a lot of movies, in mob movies, where people got killed in cornfields, buried. I mean, he probably did some burying of there. I think the cornfields were a big part of the mob where they put the bodies. You could say that Field of Dreams and Goodfellas. I mean, he was a part of two of the bigger movies, just in terms of iconic movies, things that are still talked about. I mean, Goodfellas, I would say mob movies is just one of the biggest genres in movie history, and probably beside Godfather, Goodfellas would be known as the best mob movie ever, or Godfather 2, or whichever one you like. It'd be one or two.
Yeah.
And I'd say Field of Dreams would be widely considered one of the great sports movies of all time.
There are some people who don't like it, but I consider it that. Yeah, I think a lot of people do consider it that. But
not sure I've ever totally watched it start to finish, but I feel like I know the movie. You build it, they will come. I say that all the time. I don't even think I've ever seen him say that in the movie. Because his father on the team? Was that the thing? Kevin Costner's dad on the team?
So Ray only says it at the very end once. You hear a whisper throughout the movie, but Ray himself only says it at the very end of the movie. The dad, Kevin Costner's dad, was like a failed minor leaguer, and was he wasn't on the 1919 Black Sox? No, to answer your question.
But, so does Ray Liotta play the character that threw the World Series?
Ray Liotta plays Shoeless Joe Jackson, yeah. But Shoeless Joe hit the ball pretty well. Like, there's some debate about whether or not Shoeless Joe actually threw the 1919 World Series because his numbers were really good. He just took the money.
So Ray Liotta couldn't read or write. Ray Liotta played a character who was also connected to the mob as a baseball player.
I saw somebody say today, like, watching Ray Liotta, you were never quite clear. Was Ray Liotta just playing himself, right? And you definitely feel that, right? You just imagine. I got to watch a Ray interview. Did he just laugh the way Shoeless Joe laughed, or the way he laughs in Goodfellas? It's the same laugh, like ha! Like that big open mouth,
What I was thinking today when I saw that he died, I kind of believe in a weird way that Pesci, De Niro, and Ray Liotta were part of murders, even though they're Hollywood actors. But like, I feel that, especially I would say Ray and De Niro, definitely Pesci.
I'd say Pesci 100%.
But I just feel like Ray knew what was going on. Like, if you just told me Ray knew about some murders, it just feels like they were part of the life, even though they weren't probably in the life, but they do. It's hard to fake what they were bringing to the table, right?
You wonder, how are these guys so good at this?
Yeah. Who was it? Like Don Rickles? Like, Don Rickles was like a made guy in the mix. He's in Casino playing the pit boss for De Niro. Well, it just came natural to Rickles because Rickles was like in the crew with all these guys in Vegas, right? Him, Sinatra, they were all boys.
Yeah.
those guys were older than these guys. Now
They made a lot of money entertaining the mob.
Yeah. So if you're just making money entertaining, if you are the paid entertainment in situations like that, what are you going to end up being? Around these individuals a lot, right? Hey, come over to my house today. Like you end up not just singing the whole time. Like, hey, you want a cocktail? You start hanging out. You might end up just liking the guy. You're like, yeah, he's a murderer, but fuck, good guy. Nice to me.
Method actors got to do the work to fulfill the role, says Corey on the stream.
It really does feel like, you're right, Ray Liotta. I was thinking about this today. Like, why does it kind of feel like I don't feel like I've watched that many Ray Liotta movies. Like his character when he was on is as good. Like it just doesn't get any better. It feels like he's mastering the role. It'd be like, remember that one season when that fucking pitcher went 25-2 and won the Cy Young and then blew everyone away in the playoffs? You're like, I've never seen anything quite like that. Even if he didn't have a great career, you just like never forget that. Like Ray Liotta had a couple moments in Hollywood that are just unforgettable.
And when you saw Ray Liotta in anything that you didn't know he was in, you'd go, "Oh shit, Ray Liotta!"
Exactly. But he wasn't like that famous of an actor, right? I mean, he was, but he wasn't like Tom Hanks or Leo.
When you look at his roles, I'm just looking at him right now. Like it's not a lot of stuff that I've seen. I don't think Copland in 90. I mean, Blow in 01. John Q.
He plays Johnny Depp's dad. That's a good role.
Marriage Story, The Place Beyond the Pines, Shades of Blue, Killing Them Softly.
You know what's funny about that role that he plays in Blow, Johnny Depp's dad? The mom is so angry that Johnny Depp becomes a drug dealer. Ray, the dad, loves his son so much, is cool with him doing whatever he wants to do. So in a weird way, his dad is like open to the fact that Johnny Depp is the biggest American cocaine smuggler. Like he's cool with it. Like he gets back to like ultimately Ray Liotta is cool with crime. You know, I mean, it just comes natural. Like he's not even roles when he's not the criminal. He's open to it.
He's proud. Look how smart my son is.
Yeah.
The mom in Blow is Karen from Goodfellas.
See, it's
on the stream.
Yeah, I was thinking that right when I said it, but I wasn't quite sure.
Man,
Blow. I think in high school we had to write down what our favorite movie was, and I wrote Blow. And it wasn't because I was into cocaine, or I just thought the movie, Johnny Depp and Liotta. That movie's incredible. Like everyone, what's the movie with Pacino, Scarface, that really became like a cult film later? It actually didn't do that well in the box office. Blow to me blows that movie away. No pun intended. I think Blow is just a really you can find it free on TV.
Like
it's
right.
It's a really, really good movie. It is, different stuff, but it's about the cocaine trade. I think it's a pretty damn good movie. It's long.
Say Hello to My Little Friend's a pretty iconic moment in movie in cinema, John.
Yeah, there are more iconic. The picture of him in the hot tub.
Yeah, yep. Mitch on the stream says, "Did you guys catch Kyle Shanahan say it expects Debo to be at OTAs next month? Maybe things are progressing in contract talks." We did catch that. We were there when he said it. We watched him say it. He said it in a very casual way. I think I could be wrong. You have to go back and check the tape. I think that was the first time Debo's name got mentioned in that press conference. I think he volunteered it. I don't think Debo's name had come up to that point. So he brought Debo's name into the mix, which I also thought was significant. I thought that kind of meant he was being authentic, or that he wasn't saying it to try to I think he thinks that. So I think he's optimistic about it. I thought more significant, Iuke made a comment about how, I talked to Debo. Actually, a bunch of us just called. We just called him a minute ago, like that. Him and a couple other guys FaceTimed him or something. So I thought that was significant too.
Do you think like JJ Watt and all the guys with the Cardinals are FaceTiming Kyler after practices or no?
Good question. I don't know.
I'd lean probably not.
Kyler's ask is probably a little higher. Kyler wants Alex Rodriguez money.
I just mean, are they FaceTiming just to see him how he's doing and hang out?
Hey man, we miss you. Meanwhile, Colt McCoy's just here to win the job. You want to start with Trey today?
Trey area.
He spoke on Tuesday and talked a lot about his finger. His finger's 100%. But you thought actually it was something that Jimmy Ward said that was more significant than anything that Trey Lance said.
Well, Jimmy Ward mentioned, I guess Matt Mailbag, when he was Jimmy Ward spoke to the media, the assembled media. We were long gone by then. We're just podcasters. And Mailbag talked about his locker being right next to him and how they interact. And Jimmy swore like 17 times. It was like he just kept saying shit. He just said they talk a lot of shit to each other in a funny way, like I'm going to get you on practice. And just the way Jimmy spoke about Jimmy's press conferences was awesome. Jimmy Ward is one of those guys, and a lot of people when I posted on Twitter was like, it's pretty cool whenever you get a player who most people think isn't any good and is a disaster, and then becomes like one of the stalwarts on a really good team, and you take a lot of pride in the guy. And I think Jimmy's great representation of that. Part of it was like they used to play him at corner. That was what they did, like when they first drafted him. So he's out of position. He's found his role, and clearly Kyle loves him. And to me, they believed in him. And I don't think it's random that they put him next to Trey Lance. I don't think it's random at all, because I think what Jimmie stands for, they want what he brings to the table to like rub off on Trey. Any team would do this, right? You have a young quarterback. If I had drafted Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence, I'd want to put him next to someone in my locker room. Like if I had, I'm just trying to use like OCU Manure, just like high level tough guy, whoever that guy is, you would want him around that guy. And I just, the way NFL teams operate, right? Everything like to what guys are going to eat, to what time you come in, there is no way that where your locker is set up isn't meticulously thought about with your star quarterback. Maybe like where Brunskill wants to go. It's like, yeah, put him where he can go wherever. But Trey Lance, where they set up his locker, I have to believe, and I do believe this, and maybe they would admit to this, maybe they wouldn't. They did that on purpose, putting it next to Jimmy Ward, right? Do you agree with that?
I agree with that, and I would say my guess is that they told Jimmy Ward, we're putting you next to him, and there's a reason we're putting you next to him. Now, maybe with Jimmy you don't have to. Maybe Jimmy just understands Trey Lance is next to me, and my job is to help him get ready for the NFL, right? I mean, I think one of the things we saw last year a lot with Joe Burrow, we've seen in Joe Burrow's career, a lot of the Joe Burrow mic'd up stuff is Joe Burrow talking to defensive players, introducing himself or like kind of having fun, talking a little trash or whatever. And because that's what happens, especially with young quarterbacks, especially with highly drafted quarterbacks. People say shit to them, right? And I think that's part of the value of Jimmy Ward, is not just probably from an X and O standpoint talking ball. Like when they walk off the practice field, they're sitting next to each other. Like it's very easy to have a casual conversation about what just happened. You're not in the meetings a lot, right? You meet with your own position group. Yeah. So you meet with people who look at what you do from the same position that you look at it from, whereas Jimmy Ward looks at it from the other side, right? When practice happens, where does Kyle Shanahan stand? Behind the quarterback. When John Lynch is out there, where does John Lynch stand? On the other side of the field, behind the defense. Just how he naturally. Now, I'm not to say he never stands behind the quarterback, but
more. There is more room on that side.
There's much more room. That's where I stand. I'm more of a defensive guy myself, John. I like to stand behind the defense.
I'm an offensive guy, but I gravitate to that side because, again, the real estate. A lot of real estate on that side.
I'm big. I just watch the trenches, so that's my thing. That's where I was raised. But I think partly it's about reporters come and talk to you. You're when you're in the locker next to the guy who is, someone's talking to, you get to watch how that person has that interaction. All these little things, right? I think that'd be one of them too. Probably more of an old school thinking to specifically think about that, because people are going to naturally come to the quarterback as well. But I think there's all these little things.
One thing that Kobe Bryant said, that just, he's on so many like motivational Instagrams that I scroll through, and I run into this one every once in a while, that like he wanted to be remembered as a talented overachiever. And obviously Kobe's talent, given his sport, was higher than Jimmy Ward's. But when I think Jimmy Ward, I do think an overachiever. And I think ultimately you want all your talented players to be and gravitate to be overachievers. Like ideally, like Tom Brady's an overachiever, right? LeBron James, Steph Curry, these guys are overachievers despite their immense talent. Tiger Woods was an overachiever. So if Trey's going to be a great player, he's going to have to be an overachiever. Like if he's really going to live up to everything. And to me, you put him against a guy that, a couple years ago, we're like, is this guy playing the NFL, to like now having to just being one of the mainstays, as he said, one of the best defenses in the league.
5 years into his career, he'd started 8, 10, that's 18 plus 6 is 24 plus 7 is 31. He started 31 games in 5 years. That's not a very good rate. That's, Jimmie Ward was a first rounder. But to your point, from Northern Illinois, not from LSU. So an overachiever to be a first rounder. And then, first of all, how talented do you have to be for 5 years to not to miss that many games and still come back for year 6? Right.
Was a first rounder, but still, I mean, he had gone. How many coaches did the guy see? Tom Sula, Chip, then Kyle. But to me, clearly, like Kyle and John, like we have a pretty good idea what they look for in guys, like the type players they like, right? Even I'm not even talking about on the high. Harbaugh would have liked, Harbaugh, I'm sure liked this guy too, but like they like Hufungus, right? They like Brunskills. Everyone likes Trent Williams. Like everyone's gonna like Deebo Samuel, but like truly who the type guys they like, it's pretty clear. Now Jimmie's on the higher end of that. I wouldn't put him in the high-end group of the players, right? He's not the Bosas, he's not the Trents, he's not even the Kittles, but he's in the next tier. And there are a lot of guys like Jimmie who 5 years into the league wash out when they're in those situations. Like, what's this guy's deal? He refused because he cares too much. And I like having my quarterback around people that care too much, even if he cares a lot. Like, ultimately, and maybe one day you put people around Trey, right? Like, if I ran, who do you think Jason Lights puts around Tom, right? People, young guys that he wants to. I bet Bill did it for years, right? Or Phillip Rivers or whoever, Eli Manning. You want, but you learn as a young player, and that's kind of, to me, the coolest part about a guys that go on to have long careers. I mean, Jimmie's story is fascinating, but great player stories are fascinating too. Sometimes we're like, I learned a lot how to be a pro my first couple years being around so and so, right? Because it's like any job. You come in, you're like, what do I eat? Like, wait, I should go to bed kind of earlier. And you just kind of learn these little things that even though you're making all this money, like think about Trey gets $7-8 million a year, which is, he's in the top 1% of the 1% of just a guy that gets a salary at that level. And he doesn't really, for his first year, he probably was like, what do I even do? Right.
Yeah.
How do I do this? Like, how do I improve this? Like, you don't even know. It's not most people in life, once they start making that money in any other industry, they've kind of proven it. So they come in, they kind of hit the ground running. Sports, and specifically like the NFL and basketball, because you go to the show immediately, I give you a lot of money, and then the expectations just immediately start. Like, you better figure it out quick. So it's like the coaches can only do so much. You are very dependent in football specifically on your locker room. And this gets back to what we talked about, the Kinlaw stuff over the last couple of days. Like, ultimately, why you feel incredible just on a day-to-day basis for the Niners, your locker room is filled. Honestly, they kind of have a Patriot vibe, a lot of their guys, of just like pretty serious football lovers. Like when you looked at the McCourties and the Hightowers and the Edelmans over the years, it's like, God, these guys fucking love this shit.
Well, Jimmie Ward is like he's got a
I think Belichick would like Jimmie Ward.
Yeah, I mean, he's not, I don't know if I'd say he's got a Matthew Slater-like vibe, but Jimmie Ward is coming into year 9 on one team. I don't know how many guys.
You said his first year was Harbaugh's last year?
His first year was 14.
How many guys that aren't Pro Bowlers last all those coaches and all those administrations?
First of all, how many guys that aren't Pro Bowlers, even if it's one coach on the same team, last 9 years on the same team?
It'd be pretty rare.
It's a pretty unique sweet spot, right? Of not a highly, highly paid guy, not a Pro Bowler, but also definitely an NFL starter.
Not cheap, though.
But not cheap, but 9 years on one team. That's what he's coming into. 9 years. That's 9 years in the league is an extreme. You are an outlier then. But even among vets, to be 9 years on a team, it doesn't happen without hard. I mean, if you're not a star or a high level guy, how do you stay on a team for 9 years?
Well, think about it. It feels like Armstead's been on the team forever. He's been on the team longer because Armstead came in the next year.
Yeah.
But it's easier. Like if you told me who last, the 5'11" safety, kind of free safety, strong safety, kind of this hybrid.
He's hurt for his first 4 years, basically.
Yeah. Or the 6'7" guy from Oregon who, is 280 pounds, can play end and tackle, and can pass rush inside. It's like
both. Turns out both.
Because both of them have in common, right? They're pretty just impressive guys.
Yeah. Think about how much coaching Trey Lance has had in the last year now between Kyle and Mike McDaniel, all the Niners offensive coaches, plus Quincy Avery and Adam Dado and whoever else has been coaching him off of Niner ground. He's had a lot of coaches, a lot of coaching, a lot going on for him. Having a player who's not coaching you per se, who's not talking about your footwork necessarily, who you can just talk to but also get something from is pretty valuable, pretty unique.
It's the importance of having a good locker room. It's something that, it's kind of nerdy. We don't talk about that much because ultimately one season, no one cares. Like, are you winning or losing? But it's stuff that I think GMs and coaches talk about 24/7. 365. When I was in the NFL, it was constantly like, what would this guy be like? He's friends with this guy. Oh, this guy mixes in. I mean, I think it's a good example. Like, I crushed the move, but I do understand, like, we need to trade for a wide receiver. There's not going to be a wide receiver in the draft. We don't want to pick any of these people. We need to get Kyler help. And we use pick 23 to get Hollywood Brown, who just caught 90 catches, that they're boys and they've known each other for 5 years. Right? Like, to me, that value, like Steve Keim would tell you, like, I value that more than everyone on the internet shitting on me. Right? That these guys are fucking homies for years and they played together before. Like, I value that more than everyone else.
Clearly, but we'd also be like, Steve, you shouldn't have to go to that extreme.
I agree. But my point is, like, that's an example of, like, that there should be a sweet spot. I'm just saying that it does. Like, AJ Brown and who the Jalen Hurts, like, they're buddies, like, they're friends. I think from, like, either growing up.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Out in college. Yeah, they're friends. So, like, that stuff. Again, AJ Brown would have got traded whether Jalen Hurts was their quarterback or Trevor Lawrence. It didn't matter who the quarterback was. But, like, you feel a lot better about, like, their relationship. Like, honestly, when I didn't watch Iuke talk and say this about the FaceTiming, but when you told me that, like, to me, it's like, that's the type of stuff that makes you smile when you're John Lynch and Kyle. Like, these fucking guys like each other.
Yeah.
To me, the biggest part of this part of the year is just like, can these guys, because you're not, we were at practice, like, yeah, they get to go home after this. Your day's done at, like, after you go eat some food. Like, you can go play golf, you can go to the pool, you can go hang out with your girlfriends, you can just go with the boys and do whatever you want. Like, it is a huge team bonding time for a lot of your team. And you do want them to like each other. Now, it's you don't have a choice. It's kind of like going to camp when you're a kid. You just hang out with who you're going to hang out with. Like, you don't choose your teammates. But that's where GMs and team building really factor in. Like, can these guys be friends? I mean, look at Derek and Devontae. Like, ultimately, Josh and those guys, Devontae's so good, you might make that trade. But how much easier does it make to pull the trigger on something like that? And I know there are more variables. He had to want to come there and sign the contract, but just knowing they're really close. Tyreek is like, does Tyreek really want to be there, or does he just kind of want to be in Miami?
I think he kind of wants to be in Miami.
Yeah.
Got his chip. I don't, get paid, all that. I think mostly that he wanted to get paid, right?
But I guess those two trades who are very similar, both a lot of money, it feels like one guy really values going there with this guy, and the other guy's like, yeah, I didn't even care. I like Mahomes more.
It feels like Devontae wanted to go to a specific place, and Tyreek just wanted to go to a place where they would pay him, which it's two different things.
Yeah.
Brandon Aiyuk also spoke, and Matt Barrows asked, and Brandon Aiyuk, same deal, actually. He displayed some of what Brandon Aiyuk said was about how I used to be the young guy. Now I'm, this is year 3 for me. I'm a veteran. And Matt Barrows from The Athletic asked him a really good question. He said, year 3 was when Debo kind of took the next step. You're coming into your 3rd year.
That'd be an understatement.
Do you have goals for yourself? And Brandon Aiyuk said, yes, I have goals for myself. Everybody has goals for themselves, but he didn't specify any specific goals. He said, I want to win. That's the number one issue. So I thought we could project Brandon Aiyuk's numbers. What do you think year 3? And there's a couple ways to define it, right? You could say, what do you think he's going to do? And we could say, what does a good 3rd year for Brandon Aiyuk look like? But I think the way to look at it is what do we think a good 3rd year from Brandon Aiyuk could look like?
Well, so he's basically, through his first 2 seasons, averages 58 catches, 778 yards, and 5 touchdowns a season.
He had 2 rushing touchdowns year 1, none year 2.
Oh, so he has 10 passing touchdowns combined. So 10 receiving touchdowns through 2 years. So he's averaging 5, and 56 and 60. So he's averaging 58. I would say, I wouldn't say he underachieved, but he can definitely achieve more. Now, part of it was the way it started slow last year. His quarterback situation, his rookie year was kind of a disaster, right? I mean, Jimmie got hurt, missed however 10 games. He's playing with Mullins and CJ. Now, this situation is not guaranteed to be just Mr. 70% completion percentage every game. But I think it's fair to think that we get a 80-catch season and get that number from 5 passing touchdowns to 7, 8. And then you're just a really, really impactful. To me, he's destined to be a really good number 2. I mean, he already kind of is a solid number 2 based on production, but it can be better. Like, just watch him in practice. Like, he fucking can play,
Yeah.
Because he's way better than a 3. I don't ever see him. I mean, he's still pretty young. He's 20? He's 24. He's not that young. It feels like his destiny, if he maxes out, to be like, we feel excellent about this guy being our number 2 wide receiver or number 2 passing option, whether maybe you have a Kittle's a star or whoever.
So I think a couple things. I think the numbers.
I'm going around 80.
I'm going 68. And I'll tell you why. First of all, a bad quarterback situation isn't necessarily bad for a quarterback's reception numbers, right? They were worse the year that he had more catches because they had to throw the ball more. Last year, they ran the ball more. So
That's
year
true.
one.
And with this team, you're right. Maybe I should bring that down because are they really going to have that many guys catching 90 balls?
Let me go through it, and then you tell me if you want to amend your number. Because he caught 60 balls in 12 games in year one. He caught 56 balls last year. His 60 catches in year one, so only had 4 more catches in year one, but he played in 5 fewer games, led the team. Kendrick Bourne, he led the team with 60 catches in 12 games in year one by 11 catches.
Hurt. Yeah.
That year, he caught 16% of their balls. Last year, he also caught 16% of their balls, even though he had fewer catches in more games. But he was third on the team in catches, 15 catches behind Kittle. So he was in first place by 11 in year one, and in third place behind second place by 15 in year two. But the same percentage of their balls went to Brandon Aiyuk. And, I think I look at the Dallas Cowboys last year as the template for their distribution this year, right? We agree. They're not the Rams, where Cooper Kupp has 145 catches, and second on the team is Tyler Higbee with 61. Like, these guys are built differently. Here were the Cowboys last year. CeeDee Lamb had 79 catches. Dalton Schultz had 78 catches. And Amari Cooper had 68 catches. Lamb, 79. Last year, Debo led the team with 77. Schultz, 78. Last year, Kittle was second with 71. Cooper, 68. Last year, Aiyuk was third with 56. So the number 3 receivers where the drop-off was between the two teams. Now, there was another major difference. The Cowboys were 5th in attempts. The Niners are 31st.
Yeah.
But the Niners are probably, ideally, they'll be, I don't know if they'll be 31st in pass attempts. They might have to be, we think they're going to want to run the ball a lot, but
let's say they go 31 to like 20, even that would be.
And even, I would say even 25, maybe. So to me, because they're still going to want to run the ball a lot, right?
One thing, though, with Iuke, though, guy, is like last year, for example, I would say like his last 60% of the year, he was really good. His first,
that's true.
Basically going into Halloween, he had 9 catches. So all September and basically all October. Because remember, he kind of got iced out early, hamstring, Kyle, whatever fuck you want to believe it was. He just was iced out. 9 catches going into the Halloween game against the Bears. And then, so think about that. If he just would have been on his normal trajectory of just playing more, Sherfield was getting his reps. Does that number 56 more like 69? I mean, remember, early on, I was like, is this guy in the game?
So the Bears game, from that game on, or you could go to Arizona, and then he was 6'3", 7, 6, 4, 4. Yeah, I mean, you could bump that number up. If you're looking, my guess, just eyeballing it, is he was probably 5 catches a game over the course of that stretch without doing the math.
Yeah.
Does that look about right to you, probably?
Yeah. Give or take. Yeah.
So what's 5 times 17?
Well, 5 times 10 is 50. So
85.
85 feels a little high, just given that it assuming Kittle, the emergence of Juwan Jennings. But I do think that number could get, what'd you say, 68?
I said 68.
I don't think it's inconceivable like a 75 sweet spot.
And is he second on the team then? He's ahead of Kittle probably then? Does Debo's number stay at 77, or does that number change?
I think both the two guys could be around in the 70s because Debo's kind of unique. He'd get the ball. Like they're not just like never running back again. Like what happens in a tie game against the Rams in the fourth quarter is like put that motherfucker back.
Right, Davis Price,
19. Yeah, we're gonna go pitch sweep here coming in. Debo Samuel get
fourth down. One play left from the 24-yard line. That'll be a run play for a touchdown. Yeah.
It sounds a lot like, we're going to run a lot more with other people. And then you're in a tie game against the Packers in Lambeau. You're like, put them back there.
I didn't want to run it 12 more times today, but we're going to have to. Yeah.
Especially when it's like, well, Kyle, you get wide open lanes. That's the other thing. I mean, Kyle does get you lanes.
You saying less big hits?
Well, I mean, Debo kind of runs into some people.
I know.
But Debo does that when he's going across the middle. Like Iuke is a little more of a true wide receiver. He'll kind of hit the ground. He just kind of he has wide receiver vibes. Debo has some Kittle vibes. Like, okay, guys, 3 guys want to tackle me. I bet you guys are all going to be on the ground. I'll be spinning around, get 5 extra yards.
I know,
which is good. But I do think that's the biggest question mark with their passing game is like, I feel very confident that Iuke is going to play 17 games. Like I just expect him to play 17 games. Now, obviously guys can get hurt, but Debo, Kittle, who are I would say they're 1 and 2 option in the passing game. And then Iuke would be third. I have zero confidence that they all can play all 17 games like this season. If you told me right now, would you sign up for 15 each? I'd be, yeah. For both those guys.
And you just hope that they overlap, right? The two of them are healthy when one of them's hurt, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
That would not be a problem.
At all. If it
45 games between the 3. Yeah. It wouldn't be ideal, but wouldn't be.
I mean, there's just a nature to this. There's a nature to the sport where guys, you're going to be more inclined to get hurt when you play like George. You play like George Kittle. It's just hard to stay healthy, right? He just finds himself in a shitload of collisions. Feels like Kelsey is a good example of a guy who plays the same position. Little, obviously, less is asked of him in the running game, partly because he's not the blocker, and 2, Andy doesn't like running the ball. When the ball is in his hands, he's just more inclined to like kind of save himself. Or Kittle is just, and I don't blame him, but he wants to inflict pain on individuals in the open field. And I don't think Debo does as much. He feels confident about his, his balance, his body and balance control and just power on contact. A lot of guys don't avoid hits because on contact, I'm going to go down. Like I think Debo feels like, fuck, you hit me, I can bounce off like a running back.
I think he's trying to score on every play too.
Debo?
Yeah.
Feels like Kittle is too.
Kittle is too.
Yeah. Like Kittle, this is a 5-yard slant, man. Just
to the house. To the house. So next, let's see, Wednesday will be their next open practice. So we'll be there and we'll see. But I think Iuke's a pretty fun practice player to watch, not because he's so spectacular, but just because he's really smooth. Iuke is a really smooth player. A really smooth player.
That's I was thinking about that when we were driving down. The cool aspect of scouting, just in general, like if you're on the team side, going into that year, right? N'Keal gets drafted. I mean, you were closer probably to like the Arizona State, just the football program, talking to people in the program. Like it didn't feel, did Iuke somewhat come out of nowhere? Like no one was talking about him being a 1st-round pick going into his junior season. And even when he had the season, people thought he was a good prospect and, maybe get drafted in the 3rd round. And as it played out, he ends up going in the late 1st round. It just shows you like how fast things change. Like there are so many guys that we hype up, and we're going to do it over the next, 3 months leading in the college football season. I'm not even talking quarterbacks. There'll just be a group of like 10 other players, right? Jordan Addison type guys all around the country that are like, this guy, 1st round. And half of them will kind of fall off. And then there'll be Iukes all around the country at like random schools. Like Oregon State might have one. Iowa State might have one. And then they'll actually pass those guys over time. But no one will talk like the Dane Brugler's mock draft ain't going to have that guy right now at number 21. He'll have the sexy guy from Alabama who ultimately will still go get drafted, but might end up being a 3rd rounder. So the Iukes are all over the country. and they turn out sometimes to be the better players over time, right? The hype guys, like Jordan Addison is a good example. Like I would say the hype on him is going to be pretty strong. No one's going to view him like Julio Jones or whatever, but I would say everyone the way he's talked about is like a lock top 20 pick, right? Is he? I mean, I don't know.
But he's also pretty unique in that he was once upon a time, nobody was talking about him.
Yeah, he kind of he was a low recruit going to Pitt.
Brandon Aiyuk went to a junior college and then was in N'Keal Harry's shadow. And then had, a great year. And I think there are people around ASU that would say, no, we knew he was going to be good, but nobody was banging on the table going, here, there's a first rounder nobody's talking about.
Because when N'Keal was making plays the year that his big year, he became a big deal in the country, right? People talking about
He also was making plays as a freshman, which really helps you get momentum, right?
Oh, so you're saying he was on the mark for a while. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying the buzz that N'Keal had, and clearly, like, obviously he's not been a good pro relative to where he's been drafted, is Iuke. If N'Keal had the hype of 9 out of 10, I'd put Iuke to like 1. I don't even know if I really knew who he was.
Well, it's not like you were watching ASU probably, especially early in the year, thinking, I got to watch this guy Iuke.
I watched a lot of N'Keal. I remember thinking, like, I kind of like this guy.
Because he had a couple plays. What you need to, you get a couple plays early. I think year 1 or year 2, we had this crazy
field,
running back. Exactly. You get a couple of those, and
that would be the key if I was a wide receiver that wanted to get on the NFL buzz. I'd be like, Coach, can we set up a quick screen? Bad. Yeah, quick screen, have some guys fuck up, but set up the backside blockers. Yeah. I plan on cutting this thing back. And if this works, I'm going to go so goddamn viral, and every GM, and I'll score, and we'll win, and I'll give some credit, but like we kind of had this in the play. So it'll be like team effort. But I'm telling you, this will put me on the map. This will make you look like a genius. Because there's nothing like the quick screen, run all the way back around the right tackle and end up going about 70 for a touchdown. That's an immediate viral all over social media that Saturday, right?
Well, it's a Pop Warner play, right? When like everybody's chasing one guy and who's like better than everyone else.
Yeah, you jump over a defensive lineman, you spin around a corner.
There's always one big block.
There's always a decletion.
Yeah.
It also, I would say, for everyone that hits, about 50, the guy gets tackled for a 17-yard loss.
Goes nowhere.
The's nothing like when the guy cuts it back, and then there's like the defenders are over there, so he's got to kind of go back to where he's supposed to go, and he's just done. It's like,
the sit down is just like, white flag. Yeah. I'm just going to sit right here.
Tyreek Barry Sanders.
Exactly. Hey, get in our mailbag. Go to Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review, 5 stars. Leave us a question. In that question, you can ask any question. It doesn't have to be sport. Whatever you want. That's the beauty of the mailbag. We'll have another mailbag coming up. But leave us a question and tell us your favorite bar if you want to share that as well.
I could use a cocktail right now.
It's Friday somewhere.
Hey, hell yeah.
I heard Lowell Cohn did a stream with Grant today. Johnny told a great Duane Kuiper story. He was covering the Giants in 1982 and wrote that they had just acquired Duane Kuiper. He had heard that Duane Kuiper had a bad knee, so he wrote that Duane Kuiper had an 80-year-old knee. So he shows up in the clubhouse the first day, and Duane had told one of the other Giants, let me know when he walks into the room, when Lowell Cohn walks in the room. And somebody pointed him out, and so Duane walks up to him, and he said, I saw what you wrote. And I want to let you know that outside, one of the clubhouse guys, he's 80 years old. And I thought we could go out there and have him kick you in the balls. And then I'll kick you in the balls. And then you can see if my knee is like an 80-year-old knee. Now, that's a great story. That was the short version. He told it better. How good of a story is that?
Yeah, like father, like son. That's
and he said he told him, you know what? You got me. You got me. And,
did Duane have a long career after that for the Giants, or did he transition pretty quickly?
I got to go back and look. I think he probably played another. How many years did he play for the Giants? Another 4 years, maybe something like that.
Yeah, because I guess him and Kirk would have been on the team in the mid '80s. So yeah,
but he started calling games by the late '80s. I'm pretty sure. I had this VHS tape when I was a kid called the 50 Greatest Home Runs of All Time. And one of the home runs was Duane Kuiper's only home run. So I've seen it a million times because I watched the hell out of this tape.
In Cleveland?
In Cleveland. It gets over the fence by like a foot. It just gets out.
Was Jose Canseco the one that hit him on the head and went over on there? Or was this
Jose
before that?
Canseco was on there. There was one by a guy named Luke Appling who hit it in a old timers game. He was like 87 years old and he hit a real major league home run.
That's pretty awesome.
That was a good one.
Was Hank Aaron's number one?
Hank was on there. I don't remember what the ranking was, because some of them are goofy, so they're not really the 50. Bobby Thompson's home run was on there.
Do you think Jock Pederson will be on there one day?
Jock. I mean, it's just a reminder. Pablo hit 3 homers in a World Series game, but Jock was pretty good.
When you hit 3 home runs at night and then have a day game the next day and your first AB is a home run, that's a pretty special just stretch. That he'll never forget that the rest of his career. 4 home runs in basically 12 hours.
Well, it was
someone tweeted at me, he had 4 home runs and 10 RBIs in 12 hours.
Well, I was thinking that too, watching him after the first game. Like, God, he's gonna, for the rest of his life. This is one of the greatest baseball games he's ever played. And then the next day, his home run from the day game shows up in my timeline. And for a second, I'm like, was this yesterday's highlight? Are they already playing a game today? It was a new game. He had a new home run. Well, he talked to Barry Bonds. I mean, that's what happened.
So that to me, listen, Barry, I bet him and Lowell got after it. But he does. One thing I saw Jock saying is like, it's incredible to listen to this guy talk about hitting, and he just got me in a good mind space. Like I can't believe that's random, because even Jock was like, I was hitting like shit. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt lost. And then all of a sudden he talks to him and he says, I look at my watch, it's 6:30. I realize I got to get to the clubhouse. Game's about to start. Then he hits 3 home runs. Like, I'm just sorry. Like, it's not.
And the goal and the game winning, not the game winning hit, the game tying hit. And then Crawford had the game winning hit.
It's incredible.
Yeah. He said that Barry told him to catch the ball with the bat. That's one of the things Barry told him. Barry is so smart. Like, clearly, right? Like, obviously, there's a whole other element to Barry, but
he's skinny now.
Extremely smart. Yeah, I saw a photo of him. He was wearing a hat. It was a cycling logo. He was rides his bike everywhere.
I had a buddy that lived in Marin that was eating dinner like with his wife, and Barry walked in, I think, with his girlfriend, and did one of those sneaky pics, and I think he Snapchatted it to me, so I couldn't post it. But
was this recent?
Yeah, probably within the last month. Barry just looks fantastic. I mean, It's just. Honestly, he doesn't even look that old.
Lars on the stream says, Danny Gray going to get 27 catches for 475 yards and 3 touchdowns. We saw Danny Gray the other day. We watched him.
Looks good.
I look forward to watching him again. 27 catches sounds not great. Juwan Jennings had 24 catches last year.
But he had like 12 the last couple games. I do
down conversions.
Me and Guy
third round receiver.
Me and Guy have been told they are very, very high on Danny Gray. They like him. Safe to say their draft grade was higher on Danny Gray than where they took him.
Yeah.
Now I knew I had friends in the NFL because I didn't know that much about Danny Gray or Price. And when I asked about both guys, like, God, I really like those 2 players. Those guys were well liked in the NFL. Price, just his physicality as a running back, and Danny Gray as a wide receiver. Like, they were just, because once the draft comes, you end up talking over and over about the first rounders. You don't just spend as much time on like the guy that's going to go pick 78. But sometimes those guys in a draft room, like the Danny Grays and whoever's in the second round, like Drake Jacksons, they are well, like they have a lot of support in the room.
So when the GMs and the scouts go through the draft board, the first round's probably a lot easier for them to figure out, like, what's going to happen, who's going to be there when we're picking, than round 3, right?
100%.
So they probably spend way more time running all the scenarios on round 3.
Well, I think you gauge where those guys are going to go based on position, based on supply demand in the draft, based on did he run a slower 40 at the combine. You can kind of gauge, I would say, within 20 picks, give or take, a lot of times guys like Danny Gray. But you never truly know, and all it takes is like one guy to love. I mean, all it took was fucking Cole Strange when McVay was laughing because I bet they thought, like, is there a chance he's there early in the 3rd round, right? And then Belichick takes him in the 1st.
Corey on the stream says, hard to gauge Aiyuk's potential because of the limitations at quarterback he had in his short career. It's not unreasonable to wonder if we would know what Chase or Jefferson was if they'd started with Jimmie. I think we would know that Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson are really good players if they'd started with Garoppolo.
I would say they might not have put up, I mean, they wouldn't have, but they would have been pretty good.
Put up the same numbers.
Jefferson played with, I guess Cousins is probably a more consistent quarterback.
Well, better deep ball thrower.
That's very
true.
Garoppolo.
Yeah. And that's, that matters. Yeah, I mean, we know Debo's a good receiver and he played with Jimmie, right? It's not just about Debo, the run game. Like, we know Debo's a good receiver.
He became a star, though, when they started playing him at running back.
Well, I understand, but I mean, I knew he was a good player. Like, I felt Debo Samuel's one of their best players.
I just think both the guys' work, Kittle included, is just within the 15 yards of the line of scrimmage, right? Slants, ins, crossing routes. Like, that's they do not throw posts and go routes. That's just not a route that the Niners literally have two routes that most teams that are good run. Bombs. I mean, it's like Andy's go-to play. The Josh Allen, they throw bombs, right? The Niners just do not do it. I think that's why Hollywood's like, I want out of Lamar. That's what's kind of weird about like how much these guys like Kyle. None of these wide receivers really complain. Like they like
the Niners. I mean, the Niners had to go get Emmanuel Sanders though. They don't like. I think there's more to Debo down the field.
But I agree. I'm just saying they didn't call that with Jimmie.
Right. But what I'm saying is it's also not like Debo. If you said who's of the three guys downfield, like could Debo beat Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson running downfield? If he were playing with Kirk Cousins, would he be catching the ball down the field as much as Justin Jefferson? If you were playing with Joe Burrow, would he be catching the ball down the field as much?
I don't think so. Iuke might throw some more go routes too. It feels
it's a good. Corey disagrees with us, but it's a good what if. I'm glad we don't have to live in that world much longer.
No, who cares?
It's a good hypothetical though. Hypotheticals. Okay. Anything else for today? I know as of this recording Thursday, Kaepernick worked out Wednesday, right? And generally, you'd be signed pretty quickly. So I'll be surprised if he signs with the Raiders, but
no one else is going to sign him, right? So that to me, that would be the team if they work.
Not unless he has another workout suddenly, right?
Yeah, I mean, my take on this is pretty like this to me. It feels Mark Davis led, not Josh McDaniel and those guys led. I think Mark's under a lot of heat. I think they're coming for his team, and he's trying to keep the heat off him because you can't convince me that Josh McDaniel and Dave Ziegler would do this. Doesn't feel Patriot-like. Especially they traded for Jarrett Stidham. They got Nick Mullins. They just paid Derek Carr. To me, if you told me the Panthers
Mark said before he thinks this should happen.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those. He likes getting credit in this area, but I truly believe that he has a lot of heat on him right now. Does he not? I mean, we haven't talked much about it, but they're coming.
John Gruden's trial is not about Mark, but there's shrapnel in these things sometimes. You just get some.
Well, did you see John Gruden won today? I don't know what it necessarily means.
Yesterday, he won the right to go to trial.
Hey, don't you think that thing's going to get ugly? What if they make them open everything up?
Gruden's rich.
Very rich.
Like Gruden in Gruden's mind, he wants to prove a point, clear his name, get back in the league, whatever it is that he wants to do. It's not I don't think they can buy John Gruden out of this one.
I'm with you. I 100% agree with that take. I feel Gruden's going down or winning on principle.
He already went down. What does he have to lose at this point?
Well, I meant going down like he's going to lose it or win it, but he's going to go. When they're like, just settle. On the TV shows, just take the deal. Like Gruden's like, I ain't in this for the deal.
Right.
I'm in this for the principle to ruin your name now.
I got nothing to lose. You took my career away.
This isn't John Gruden versus the NFL. This is John Gruden versus Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
Feels like.
Yeah. But it means if the NFL, they might try to, who knows how people are going to fight back. You create distractions.
But like what you're saying, you don't think like Roger Goodell will be like, here's $50 million. Go. I feel like I don't care.
There's not a number I don't think Gruden would take.
What is the number you think that just like his attorney goes, like they're offering you $700 million?
I mean, how much did he get from the Raiders? Did he get a buyout? Do we know what happened with the rest of the contract?
I don't think it's ever been. They don't have to divulge it because it's not public. But if you're John, like, okay, let's say I've made all this money. I have a ton of money in the bank. My life, you could give me $150 million and nothing would change in my life. Nothing. So the money, when I'm this rich, I'm not like unlimited rich, but I'm rich enough to basically everything's free in my life. I'm not suing you and wasting my time for the money. I'm suing you to fuck you. Like I think that you did to me.
Not a lot of people walk away from 700. That's just the number you threw out. $700 million.
They probably, I would doubt, offer that much money.
But let's just say they did. My point is, I don't think it's out of the realm that he would say no to any number they offered him.
Yeah.
Here's $1 billion. Would he say no to $1 billion? I mean, it's not 100% lock. He says yes.
Like a more realistic, like, here's John, we'll fulfill your contract and give you more. Here's $150 million. We want this to end. He might just go. Because he's that type guy to begin with, right?
Right. And he's 68. He's not 40.
He's 68?
You think he's 58 maybe, actually? Now that I said it out loud, that sounds crazy. He's got to be 58.
Yeah, 58. But his coaching career is over, right?
Yeah.
I hate saying that. You
partly, I think that's partly related to the fact that it's not like, he'd been to the playoffs 3 times.
Would it be over, let's say, if he had been averaging 11 wins a season for the last 3 years?
I don't think so. But again, we got to see this thing play out. I mean, Art Briles is still getting, although every time he gets a job, they get him fired. So that's not.
And I would say this is a little different, Art Briles, right?
That's my point. It's like the Art Briles thing was more extreme, I think, and people try to hire him.
But I'd say the difference is when Art coached was dynamic and dominating. When Gruden coached, it was like, this is all it is. Isn't there more to this?
Yeah. That I think is the bigger.
I would say if you just polled the average guy in the NFL, what's your take on John Gruden, the coach? They'd be like, average for what you got to pay him. Like, it's not like just pure football. Be like, it's just.
Well, is he willing to go coach, a smaller college school?
Yeah, like, would he coach
Colorado State?
I was even thinking like Florida State or something.
Oh.
Somewhere in like the ACC.
I mean, Florida State, you're a pretty big star still.
That's not my point. Like, do you think they care?
I think they might hire him, but would he be willing to go smaller?
Well, my point is, would he have to? Like, could he get the Florida State job, right?
He should follow Deion at Jackson State.
Yeah, I think he gained a lot of credit if he did that.
Nate says, reports that Debo has boarded a plane headed to San Jose. Eyeball emojis. Reports or his IG, or where's that coming from?
Maybe he's got a girlfriend out here.
I look forward to seeing Debo on the field soon, John.
I do too.
I expect it. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll have a mailbag out. We'll be back with live show on Tuesday. Back to Niners OTA practice on Wednesday. Have a safe weekend. We appreciate your support or your hate, wherever you watch or listen. We're glad. Adios, Pelota. Maybe he's going to the Warrior game. Maybe he's going to the Warrior game.